Okay folks, I would like to pretend that I got myself into this to simulate an emergency situation. In other words, I'm out of cell phone contact here, and I jammed my van into the snow here in preparation to start the crypto scavenger hunt. But the reality is I didn't intend to do this. I thought that the embankment was a lot less steep. But I'll give you a look at actually how bad this is. It's, I'm pretty stuck in actuality. So I'm still gonna camp out. I got my stuff all ready. I'm gonna go over that way, I think, and set up my hot tent over there. This should be a bit of an experience. The reality is that, again, I don't have cell phone contact out here, so I'm going to have to figure something out tomorrow. Luckily, the weather's fairly mild. It's cool enough, but it's fairly mild out here. Beautiful landscape. Don't quite know. I'm going to have to think on it tonight exactly what I'm going to do. I have to maybe walk it out till I get cell phone coverage and then call. So this is the beginning of the crypto scavenger hunt hot tenting experience. This particular one will be worth 1 PPT as long as I don't die. And so I got these blow up snowshoes, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to easily walk through the snow. Here we go. Baby. Top heavy. Let's see if this fits very much. Oh shit. So this is very much a learn as I learn experience. I've failed quite hard so far, but I think I'll be okay for the night. So I've chosen this little spot right here. It's not that far from the van. Again, if I have to walk out, it shouldn't be too bad. The snowshoes are working okay on this kind of ground, but if trying to haul stuff in is just not going to work. Again, not that it's the hugest of issues. I was able to palk it in for the brief distance that I need to, but this palk certainly needs readjustment. It's too top heavy. It's not long enough. So next palk I'm going to get is going to be changed to enhance it slightly. Unfortunately, I kind of did jimmy rig one together, but oh well. I think I'm an exemplar of how not to go hot tenting. I was cutting some of the tree branches, and in essence, I'm not used to having that extra distance with my foot out while I'm wearing snowshoes, and given the fact that these are air-blown snowshoes, it popped them. Pretty terrible. It is looking a little tight in here. It's, I think about 9 feet, which is the size of the tent, so I think it ought to work, but it's going to be a little tight. Putting in the center pole is always a little bit of a moment of truth, because for one thing, I don't really like the angle on which I'm coming in here. It has a bit of a slope to it. Certainly not ideal. I just wanted to find a place that's reasonable and close by. Also, my stakes are not necessarily staked down as good as they could be, and the tent I should have turned the other way a little bit, but I think it's going to work anyway. We'll see here. You can easily pull those stakes up because they're not tied down exceptionally hard. Looks like it's going to work though. No, maybe not. Not quite. So it is kind of cool how this stove goes together. For those that haven't seen a stove like this before, these pipes all nestle inside the stove itself, and then they're very ultralight, and they just sit inside there. You go from biggest to smallest. It has a flue, which is really a nice benefit. So the stove is going, which is quite nice. It's not a survival situation really here, but I've only heard one car pass in the distance there, so it's going to be a bit tricky getting out, I suppose. it's going to probably be a walkout, and that's about the best idea I've got at this point. Gorgeous winter day though, just fantastic. So somewhat luckily, park ranger stopped in and he noticed that my van was jammed in the side of the snowbank, and he's going to get a tow truck to pull it out. He might give me a bit of a fine for picking this spot to camp because it's not quite legal here, but it's a lot better than having to walk ages, and so it's great. So I'm gonna strike the camp down because it's just not appropriate, according to the park warden, to camp here and get the tow truck out. Yeah. So luckily I got everything essentially packed up before it became dark, and this tow truck still isn't here yet. It's been quite a while, but I'm hoping he makes it in before the night falls, otherwise I'm sleeping in the van. The tow truck picked me up, about an hour ago, and luckily I got, pulled out, no problem. And yeah, so I'm back in my hometown. I'll have to give this around to tomorrow probably. So a little piece of housekeeping here. The PPT will be available immediately, and you have to sort out the riddle, but I will keep you posted in the comments below as to whether or not they've been claimed, probably at least daily. So I've rehooked up my Polk, but I'm gonna have to probably do it in two runs today, but I'm not gonna go too far. As I said, I'm just hiking in about 1 kilometer. I got my snowshoe back in order, which is good. It wasn't too hard to sort out. Yeah, I think I'm gonna camp just up here, not too far. There are two major downsides, I think, to where I decided to camp. The first being it's really exposed to the wind. It's right kind of in the open, so that, the easterly winds would hit it directly. The second being there's not much firewood around or spruce boughs. These I lie down. If you watch my introduction video, I lie at the base of the tent to both keep you a little bit warmer and something to walk on. Putting the door facing the east, the open area here. Let's see if I'm getting a little better at this tent setup thing. Feels like I got the ropes pretty tight this time, a lot quicker than previous occasions. Probably the tie down part probably took me about 12 minutes, so not too bad. Might be too tight on the tie down there, we'll see here. I think it is. Close. Nice and toasty in the tent. It's probably about 15 degrees already. Trying to collect some sun here. It's the solstice today, so I don't have a lot of time to collect sun. My little stove heater or stove generator power store wasn't rate boosted, so I'm going to try to get at least a little bit of charge into it. Got a new beer that I took off my Pico brew yesterday called Bordello Black Betty. It's a dark porter. It's quite nice. I'm going to pour myself a glass here. I don't think it's quite frozen. It almost froze in the process of getting it in here. What I am kind of worried about tonight, I have a little cot because last time sleeping on the snow was just a bit too much. So I brought a cot out. It's an ultralight cot. But what I noticed, and I didn't think about it, is that when you put any weight on it, it pushes it into the snow. So it's not a good situation. I think the solution here is to get some wood and put it underneath the pole situation there. Might work. That's my best ideas at this point, but yeah. Yeah, so if anybody knows how to get creosote off of tents, leave a comment below. It would be awesome to get it off, because of the first day, what happens is, to keep the heat in check, you adjust the flue as well as the front part of the stove. And I had the flue tube closed, and it does it keeps the heat in. Or no, actually, I think it. I'm not 100% with the flue yet. I know the front. If you open that, it makes it warmer in here, but it burns quicker. But I kept it too closed, and there was a creosote buildup, and it splattered on top of the tent. So it would be awesome to get that off. I don't quite know. I tried some detergent, but if anybody's got a good idea how, in the sense that I think it doesn't do good for the tent in the long run if you leave it on there. So, thanks. Excuse the no-shirtedness. It's quite warm in here. What are we looking at? I think, yeah, 35, 38 degrees Celsius. Pretty intense. Damper. Yeah, I can't really put it closed anymore, otherwise it'll start to build creosote. And the front's pretty much closed up. This wood burns really hot, I suppose. I can't, I have to cut smaller pieces, I think. Really love, as Joe Robnett, who's kind of a Canadian icon in the bushcrafting community, he'd say it's a beautiful piece of kit, this here. In that, yeah, again, that power system nestles inside of it, as well as the stove, little micro stove system. It's heavy, it is, but it's acting as my pan right now, so it's great stuff. Chop wood. Okay, fireside chat. So this particular fireside chat, grab yourself a brew if you don't have one, maybe. It's going to be on cryptocurrency. So I don't know where you're at on cryptocurrencies. I'm just going to kind of give a general outline, and maybe the time in which we're at, and kind of the crisis situation and the potentials of cryptocurrency right now. So I do think that, so long as there's not vast regulations upon the cryptocurrency landscape, there's going to be a plurality of currencies that are going to do well. And, it would be, in my opinion, nearly impossible to clamp them all out. What seems to be happening right now is that the government seem to be imposing this notion of the blockchain over top of the cryptocurrency landscape. And, trying to, it seems, regain the control of the financial ecosystem. When I say that, I don't know how much you know about the Federal Reserve. Great book by G. Edward Griffin that details, and blow by blow in many respects, how the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 when the Congress was almost out on Christmas Eve. That is to say, there was only a few Congress people present when the bill was passed. It's a big, lengthy story. The Jekyll Island story, which is the creation of the Federal Reserve story. Needless to say, that seems to be when, a new level of central banking implemented itself and started in the United States and spread across the planet. I see cryptocurrencies in many respects as a response towards that. It's a way to break free of, centralized systems. And one of the big catchphrases for most of the pioneers in the space is the notion of decentralization. They're not governed by anyone, and that's mind-blowing for those who haven't really delved into cryptocurrencies much. There's no one really in control with the respect to, that is to say that some of them are like that. There's more or less control depending on the project. You can look at something like Ethereum, and there's a fair degree of control by the Ethereum Foundation and stuff. But, some projects like Bitcoin, for better and for worse, there's very, very few people. And again, I'm going to say that with a caveat.
it's now been co-opted a lot more, I think, than it was in the early days. So again, more and less levels of control, but we're just not comfortable and not familiar with that idea. But it is groundbreaking. What seems to be happening in my mind is that the central banks and big government and even corporations are getting a little bit worried about this, and they're trying to implement systems that control the blockchain again. So what we might see, pure speculation, down the road is that the big companies, maybe even governments, will blow the cryptocurrencies up hugely and then try to crash it. That might have already happened. It's really hard to say for sure. But if there was a huge level collapse of, say Bitcoin from 50,000 to 10,000, let's say that they bought up 40,000 of that, and I highly doubt that that's the case, but let's just pretend that's the case. Then maybe they can implement a one world blockchain currency or something. Speculation, I know, but it's something to think about a little bit. So when we go into this, in my opinion, it's worthwhile to try to pick up these different angles, historics of money and so forth, and understanding the nature of that. And the idea of cryptography in general is fascinating. It's this kind of notion that we see codes and everything, and hidden in the landscape of this ecosystem, there's these hidden codes. You can get really philosophic about this idea that maybe, say if we were in a virtual simulation or something, that there might be codes embedded in the very nature of things. That's getting way off topic, but I do see that this could be very groundbreaking in the future, even more than it is now. Deleting a lot of the centralized control of this planet and freeing up, if we navigate these waters right. You can think about it a little bit, for better or worse. People partaking in it are a little bit like digital pirates, but they can be good pirates or neutral or negative, and you got to pick your battles here and try to get ones that are win-win-win situations. And I think there are lots of those cryptocurrencies out there that create multiple wins on multiple fronts instead of lose-win situations. So yeah, I guess it's almost time-wise, it's solstice, right? So it's really only about 7 o'clock at night, and it's been dark now for almost 3 hours in northern Canada. So it is certainly a different kind of atmosphere than the summer for a northern Canadian. That said, look forward to the night. Hopefully this will keep me warm. My sleep system, I've adapted it a bit through a sleeping bag over top of it, and try to keep the fire going. Starting the packing up process. It was a cool night. The wind gusted probably, I think it was 15 to 25 kilometers with gusts of 25, and minus 20. So, with the wind chill, it was very, very chilly out there. It stayed fairly decent, but I continued pitching logs every hour and a half probably. I threw logs in, so didn't get a lot of sleep. I just hit REM and then went back and pitched logs. So it's all right though.